The system notifies Spectre that he has encountered the Frost Queen. The Frost Queen stood proudly before him and asked him how he felt after getting here by abandoning his comrades to die. Spectre clarifies, saying that his comrades are not the ones to croak so easily. Besides, he was confident that he would kill her and everything would be over. The Frost Queen laughs out loud, and she sarcastically tells him that he is really ignorant about this world. Spectre tells her to shut up, as he doesn't have time to fool around with her. They get ready to attack each other, and Spectre exclaims that he will kill her and end this nightmare. Their weapons began to cling, and they fought each other with all the strength they had. The Frost Queen displays her skills, and Spectre counterattacks her with his skills. The fight was over, and the Frost Queen was defeated. For her, it was actually fun, but Spectre couldn't say the same. The following moment, the system indicates that Spectre is absorbing the Frost Queen's power, and his body will go into hibernation until he has fully absorbed the nucleus. 76 hours ago, in Antarctica, the players arrived at the final dungeon, the Frost Queen's nest. One of the final players, a muscular man, seems frustrated because after coming all the way here, the system notifies them that only one person could go upstairs. Skaya tells Kali to calm down, as they don't have a lot of time left and they need to decide carefully. She clearly believed that Spectre should be the one to go, and the man wearing a cowboy hat, Gilberto Green, rightly agrees with Skaya. Kali at last concedes, as there really is no one quite like Spectre to deal with his matter. Tenmei Mio declares that she also thinks that Spectre is the best choice, and then it's settled. Spectre asks his comrades if they were sure about sending him and they won't regret it later. Gilberto tells him that they may only regret it if he loses to the Frost Queen and they all die a meaningless death. But of course, they trusted Spectre, as if it's him, he can definitely do it. Spectre was sorry from the depth of his heart. 25 years later, in the year 2024, the 5 heroes were being celebrated. A woman stood before her audience and narrated the story of the Nest Attack team. She snaps her fingers, and the frozen heroes are revealed. She requests that everyone show their respect. The woman tries to continue, but a little boy interrupts her, saying that the ice statue just moved. Oh, this kid. The inside of the reinforced glass wall had its temperature under control, so there's no way that something could happen. And the very next moment something happened. The legendary Spectre broke the glass wall, and damn, he was out of it. Spectre had completely absorbed the nucleus, and he acquired a new skill, Frost X. After all this time, what in the world was going on? The news and top stories are flooded with headlines about the legend that awoke from a long slumber. Spectre was admitted to the hospital due to his weak condition. It's been 25 years, and he has been frozen for so long that he could barely grip his hands, and even his body was still shaking. Meanwhile, the doctor calls out to Spectre Nim and informs him that the president of the Player Association is on his way. Spectre doesn't like to be bothered by strangers and asks the doctor if the president is someone he knows. The doctor tells him that the president always spoke about how Spectre Nim was his close friend. There are not a lot of people who would call Spectre their friend. Anyways, the world had really changed, and it was what he and his comrades had wished for, a peaceful world. Rather than fighting, Spectre knew nothing else and wondered if he was unemployed now. Whatever it was, he didn't need this mask anymore. For the first time in years, he revealed his face, and the hospital staff were in utter shock. The world was peaceful now, and the people didn't need heroes anymore. Hang on, the doctor doesn't seem to agree with this, but the president himself is ready to explain the situation to Spectre. Spectre is thrilled to see him and recognizes him instantly. He was Deok-gu, and he wanted to have a private conversation with Spectre. The old friends greet each other, and Deok-gu tells Junho that he looks exactly the same. On the contrary, Junho makes fun of Deok-gu's baldness. He was stupid for expecting a touching reunion from this bastard. Seo Junho now gets back to business and asks Deok-gu about the doctor's reaction and demands to know why they were so shocked when everything should be over. Deok-gu flinches in his seat and explains everything to him. 25 years ago, the moment the 5 heroes had cleared the Frost Queen's nest, all the players heard about it, and the system announced that safe zones would appear on the area Earth. Everyone across the world rejoiced, crying in tears of joy, but the joy didn't last even for a whole minute. The system soon announced about a second floor and notified everyone to stay strong until the final floor. After that, the players of the World Association and the politicians gathered for a meeting, and they decided to send an expedition squad to the frontier. The second floor was a land of opportunities. Not only did humanity obtain new magic and technology, but they also gained access to a large amount of resources and knowledge that created the current affluent Earth. Deok-gu also informs Junho that there are a total of 10 floors in the dimensional elevator. In 25 years, if they had cleared 5 floors, then according to Junho they should be at the 7th floor, but of course the other players were quite weak, so realistically speaking they would probably probably be at the 5th floor. Junho asks Deokgu about it, and he tells him that they could only clear up to the 2nd floor. Hearing this, Junho almost faints. It's been fucking 25 years, and after all that time, they could only clear the 2nd floor. He was extremely curious to know the reason, and Deokgu explains how the 3rd floor is a volcanic region and the players needed the Frost Queen's nucleus to resist the heat. Deokgu and his team had searched for the nucleus countless times, but they couldn't find it. How could they, since it had already been absorbed by Spectre years ago? Junho tries to be the big guy and tells Deokgu that everyone makes mistakes, and if in case he also makes one, he should be understanding too. They then discuss about their lives, and Junho wants to visit the Seoul History Museum. Later, after the authentication process, he enters the museum. He had come a long way only to meet his comrades. Junho apologizes for being late and tells them that the world's a better place now and they have protected the peace that they so dreamed of. He tells them that they can finally rest in peace and offers them a drink. He then notices that one of them is coated in dust and heads to clean it up. Junho places his hand on the frozen sky's head and he realizes that he is able to remove the seal on the ice statues. Junho can break the seal and bring back his comrades. He quickly checks on the requirements and he learns that there's a long way to go, but it's still possible. Frost X skill was the key. He had the skills, but his level of magic and his stats were not up to the mark. Only if he could get back his previous powers, he could melt the ice and save everyone. He tells his comrades to wait for a while, and he'll soon get them out of there. At the hospital, Junho expresses that he wants to be a player again. He notices that his almost bald friend is wearing a wig. Deokgu knew that in the past Junho had always wanted to retire, but that was 25 years ago, and now the scenario is totally different. Deokgu doesn't want him to join back because of fiends. These are the players who use their awakened powers to commit crimes and terrorism without a second thought to sate their desires. They are just like tumors in the society. When countries had no means to contain them, they had a field day, and since Spectre was not around, they roamed freely. Junho knew that the fiends still hated him, and they'd go crazy thinking about killing him. Deokgu then tells him that the only way he can return safely is by throwing the name Spectre away and going back as Seo Junho. Junho needed to get back by any means possible, as he needed to get to the 10th floor. He also had a way to clear the lava zone on the 3rd floor. Deokgu was thrilled to know that he had an idea. Of course he did. Junho confessed that he had eaten it. Deokgu notices that he has finished eating the Saolyeongtang, but he wasn't referring to the food that he just ate. It was not the Saolyeongtang, and Deokgu finally realizes that he had eaten the nucleus. Junho had not eaten it because he wanted to, but the nucleus forced itself into his body. Deokgu wonders why he is friends with this guy and tries to handle his rising blood pressure. Anyway, Junho still had the frost, so he could take care of the 3rd floor. Deokgu knew that the real reason for Junho's coming back was related to his comrades, and he tells Junho that he'll deal with the doctors who have seen his face, as it's the least he could do. Junho informs Deokgu that his abilities are sealed, so he is currently on level 1 and his stats are low too. Bingo! Deokgu's blood pressure is on a high level for sure. They discuss about getting a new player license, and now Junho has to take the public exam to get a license. Though it was annoying, this was a good pretext, and Deokgu could henceforth fully support him. Junho has to get the best results so that everyone will want him, and now he is looking forward to the exam. The license exam site was located at the Player Association. Seo Junho's exam number is 75, and each candidate has to wait until their turn. He had time, so Junho decided to listen to what the other test takers were talking about. His Watchguard of Darkness skill is activated and his hearing is enhanced. He hears them talking about the news, the examiner, and candidates whining about failing their exam. The atmosphere was cool and pretty peaceful. Next, the exam officially begins, and number 1 is told to enter. Junho and the other candidates observe him carefully. The spear is best for securing the space around its user, but when the opponent starts to close the distance, waving the spear around like that won't do any good. The first applicant fails, and after some time, it's finally Junho's turn. The examiners are almost done, and none of the candidates meet even the basic requirements. They decide to wrap this up soon. The next applicant enters, and he carries a sword, a bow, throwing knives, a dagger, and even a spear. The examiners are really confused by Seo Junho's appearance. They judge him because he's skinny and call him a copycat of Spectre. Deokgu did tell him to stand out, and he guesses that this should be interesting. Once Junho is ready, the exam begins. Dwarves come out of the place, and he has to kill them. He displays his skills perfectly. Junho uses his sword, his dagger, and he even uses the bow. The dwarves couldn't escape, as the one who taught him archery is the famous marksman, Gilberto Green. The last one was left, and Junho smoothly killed him too. The examination system notifies him that number 75, Seo Junho, has passed and congratulates him. The examiners were speechless at such an amazing performance. They look up to his profile and find out that he is just a D-rank player, and they wonder if it would be worth the investment. Shim Deok-gu, this man knew what he was doing. He relaxes and sips on his coffee, knowing there won't be any trouble if they recruit him into the association. He declares that they have reached a conclusion. Deok-gu only feels bad for fabricating Seo Jun-ho's profile. At the player association, the president quietly watches over Seo Jun-ho, who seems to be enjoying his life perfectly by reading some crazy novel and munching on some snacks. The most famous player in the world that everyone looks up to is Spectre, and that's this guy right over here. Shim Deok-gu tries to hold it in, but his patience level is soon going to burst. Boom! It exploded, and he yelled at Seo Jun-ho. He calmly asks him about the novel, but he's not really interested. Deok-gu then informs Jun-ho that he has brought the stuff that he had asked for. Jun-ho is planning on clearing the uncleared gates and asks Deok-gu to collect some information on it. Deok-gu tries to make him realize that those gates were yet to be cleared because they were very dangerous. Gates are filled with monsters and traps that indiscriminately attack humans, and among them, there are gates that are so dangerous that not even the corpses of players are left behind. These gates are the only ones that beginners can go through. That's why it's even more perilous. High-level players aren't even allowed to go in, and the novices go in for rewards, but they all die. Deok-gu was worried about him, but then Jun-ho states the fact about how the uncleared gates are nothing but a headache for the association. Yes, this was true, but he couldn't put his friend in danger. Seo Jun-ho tells Deok-gu how this was supposed to be a touching moment, but he tells him to look at the gains. The rewards at the gate increase as time passes, and the gates that haven't been cleared in years will drop a ton of experience points. So it was clear that Jun-ho's only reason to go to clear the gates was because he wanted to level up a bit faster. Deok-gu was still worried as Jun-ho had already died once and asks him if he could do this in a safer way. Seo Jun-ho's comrades are waiting for him to free them at this very moment, and they'd do the same thing if they were in his shoes. Since he has returned as a player, he will eventually clash with the fiends. He knew that time wasn't on his side, but when he encounters them, he has to be strong enough to fight back. Deok-gu didn't think that far, moreover, he didn't know that Jun-ho was under so much pressure. He finally agrees to look for gates that Jun-ho could go to. Deok-gu finds the only gate that Jun-ho could go to at his level. It had appeared 7 years ago, and 142 people have attempted to clear it. Only players that are on level 1 could go in, so they call it the Novice's Grave. Even the clear condition seems pretty easy. The gate is known as the Curse of Dawn. Next, Seo Jun-ho receives his down payment, and Deok-gu informs him that with this, he is contractually tied to the association, and from today, he'll be his underling for a year. Jun-ho readily agrees to be his servant, and he jokingly tries to scare him. As for his living arrangements, Jun-ho asks Deok-gu to give him a good room, and he agrees, as Seo Jun-ho's wish was Shim Deok-gu's command. He adds up, saying that if Jun-ho does well, he will even give him a whole floor. Deok-gu gives him a box and tells him to open it, as it's his armor. The armor was light in weight and durable, and of course it was fine because it was made by Kwon Noya. Jun-ho was surprised to know that the old man is still alive, and he'll be 90 this year. He wanted to go and thank him in person, but Deok-gu stops him because he is concerned about his safety as the fiends have kept eyes on the workshop. They then decide upon his weapon, and Jun-ho wants to leave right away, but he has to improve his stamina first. The boy dances around in his loose clothes and finally decides to go after 10 days. 10 days later, Seo Jun-ho arrives at the Chunma Mountain in the Namyang province. He spots the gate and he enters it. The only clear condition of the Curse of Dawn is to survive until the sun rises. Seo Jun-ho arrives at the graveyard and he feels pretty cozy here. Like seriously, he's definitely going crazy as he feels cozy in a graveyard. He then checks the status window, and according to the information, this gate isn't that difficult. The goal was simple, he just needed to survive until the sun rose. Before coming here, he made sure to check and analyze all the data that was available. He found out about the previous players and their timings. Those who went in the afternoon had no item to adjust to the time difference, and in the end, there was nothing they could do because they were only level 1 players. On the other hand, he had experienced all sorts of things, and he was ready for everything the gate had to offer. He settles down near a huge tree, but there's this weird, gross feeling that he's being haunted. Maybe there's something that is undead. The very next moment, a hand broke out from the ground, and he knew it. He attacks the zombie and tells him that there's no need to come out and he should go back inside and rest. Jun-ho could sense a lot of them around him. He activates his Hunter's Night skill and all his senses are enhanced. He could now see clearly in the dark and could also see the ones with a dark soul. What the fuck? There were really a lot of them around him. Undead monsters were hard to deal with, they don't feel pain, and they can't take any fatal hits. They usually ignore the player's damage and only focus on attacking. They are perfect for causing panic, especially in the novices who don't have any recovery skills. Jun-Ho finally understood why it's called the Novice's Grave. He successfully wipes out all of the zombies, as he is a two-time rookie. Moreover, he's not so weak that he'll fall for their traps. But wait, there were still many of them remaining. Alas, the zombies were wiped out. Seo Jun-Ho was so tired that he sat down on a grave and rested. Out of nowhere, he hears a voice calling out for help. It's coming from a grave. Jun-Ho reaches the grave and begins to dig in. The voice tells him that he had trusted his friends and followed them here, and now they have all died except for him. The voice pleads for help and begs Jun-Ho to help him get out of here. Jun-Ho asks the person inside to yell loudly, as he needs to find his exact location. A loud, deafening voice comes out of the coffin, and Jun-Ho notes that's where the head is. He takes his gun out and aims at the coffin. He then shoots a couple of times. Jun-Ho thought that this gate was too easy to have killed over 100 people, and the one inside the coffin had made this novice's grave. The boss monster finally reveals himself. The monster wonders how he knew about his hiding place and that he was tricking Jun-Ho. It was obvious, as there's no way there would be someone left alive in an uncleared gate. After the fight has started, the gate won't open if there's even just one player left alive. The players from before probably knew this too, but sometimes one acts without thinking. The zombies were not a problem, but it was all because of the tricker. The system notifies Jun-Ho that he has successfully cleared the Curse of Dawn and receives a new skill, Confession of the Dead. He was happy that he was rewarded with a new skill. This skill allows him to peek into the memories of the dead. This skill was a new one that he got, not as Spectre but as the player, Seo Jun-Ho, and he was now excited. Ever since Seo Jun-Ho has come back, the world is in chaos and Shim Deok-gu can't get a single day off. But he looked pretty happy though, as it was entertaining for him to watch those haughty guild bastards get so flustered. It was not really the time, and Jun-Ho didn't want to reveal himself. Deok-gu tells him that if they find out that he cleared the gate, Jun-Ho will be highly sought after. People buy luxurious goods because they are expensive, and these goods are special because not just anyone can buy them. Seo Jun-Ho wanted to become an item that everyone wanted but didn't know where to find it. In short, he wanted to become a legendary, limited edition one. Deok-gu knows that his friend has a really bad personality sometimes and assumes that he's a sadist. Jun-Ho knew that people would eventually know about him through news and top stories, and the world would gradually come to know about him. They then headed to eat something, as Jun-Ho needed to eat more. Later, Jun-Ho is seen doing an intense workout, and his strength stats increase by 1. He finally feels alive again. He checks the other gates and comes across Luf's Garden, which had appeared 9 years ago and is Korea's oldest uncleared gate. If a gate is left alone for too long, monsters will start coming out of it, and they are called open gates. The government and association offered a huge reward to clear Luf's Garden. People from all over the country took the chance, but there were 124 attempts and 124 failures, and they had no choice but to leave for other countries. Tushar Vishi was a super rookie from India, and he was a genius with a bow. This boy could even surpass Gilberto Green's level, but Tushar Vishi failed miserably and everyone lost hope in clearing Luf's Garden. He learns from Tushar's mistakes, and that's why he has to prepare even more thoroughly. Since he can use the Frost skill now that he's started getting used to it, he wonders how strong it'll be in an actual fight. Seo Jun-Ho arrives at Luf's Garden, and he learns that the clear condition this time is to defeat all the monsters. Of course, he didn't know how many were there, but if parties of 4 failed, that means there was some sort of hidden trap. Jun-Ho soon spots a formation but decides to stay away from this auspicious area. He waited patiently, knowing that the Lufs come out at night. The garden at night definitely looks pretty, or one could say it looks pretty dangerous. 2 monsters pop out of nowhere, and that's a lukewarm greeting for Jun-Ho. Without any further hesitation, he begins to attack the monsters. He uses the spear and activates the Frost skill. Seo Jun-Ho is thrilled to see himself fighting like this with such brilliant skill. The Frost Queen's power is surely incredible. Jun-Ho senses something fishy, and he turns around only to encounter a monster wave. He attacks those monsters again and uses his power endlessly. Soon he kills the monsters one by one, and the fight ends quickly. Hang on, when these monsters gathered around, and now there were at least twice as many this time. Seo Jun-Ho finally realizes that these monsters multiply when they are killed. The picturization of the scenario is terrible, and Seo Jun-Ho can't even figure out the exact number of these bastards. He mercilessly slaughters them and keeps moving forward. Jun-Ho put to use his Frost skills, trapped the monsters in it, and killed them. Phew, he was so tired. After all this, something was still bothering him. Even though he has the X-grade Frost skill, if it's only this difficult, then 4 people should have been enough to clear this place. Among the players that have attempted to clear this gate, the super rookie Tushar Vishi was one of them, and according to Jun-Ho, Tushar should have been able to clear at least half of them by himself, but the main question was, why on earth he failed? The last monster was killed, and the system notifies that Seo Junho has cleared Luffy's garden. This guy had just seen his life flash before his eyes, but it's fine as long as he's not dead. He unknowingly reaches the maze. Junho can smell dead bodies that are lying around. He wondered if they were trying to run away and that the maze had only wasted their precious time. If one can't block the wave, this is just a dead end. He gets to the end, and he spots a bow that seems familiar. That's the Tempest. If one shoots an arrow with it, it flies around unpredictably like a butterfly. People said that it was like the wind during a storm, and the Indian government rented it to Tushar Vishi. Oh, so it was him. Wait, there's a notebook too. Junho curiously opens the notebook, and the year mentioned was 2044. It was April 7th, 12:40 p.m. Tushar was commissioned to clear Luffy's gate in Korea. He was extremely happy about it, and he declared that he'd do it no matter what it took. The Koreans had come all the way to ask for his help, and it would go against the teachings of Vishnu if he turned them down. Tushar's partner, Zaya, undoubtedly wanted to join him in this. She believed in him and would follow him wherever he went. Zaya had this desire to protect Tushar, and Tushar truly trusted her. They were partners for life. Tushar's teammate bid farewell to his little daughter, and he made sure that she listened to her grandma and behaved like a good girl. This guy couldn't refuse when Tushar asked him for help. At the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, Tushar and his teammates get ready to travel to their destination. Zaya had asked her friend Ram to join them, and he readily agreed. It was April 23rd and Tushar knew that tomorrow was the day. He was practicing, and he did pretty well today. Tushar had a good feeling about this. On April 24th, 2044 at 11:37 p.m., Tushar and his teammates entered Luffy's garden. Tushar was amazed by the beauty of the Luffy's garden, and it was his first time seeing a gate like this, but after all, this was a dungeon and he couldn't afford to get distracted. They begin to scout the area. On April 24th, 2044 at 8:33 p.m., the team finally spotted the Luffys. Initially, there were 8 of them, and they kept increasing after that. They were surely multiplying, 4 players and 8 Luffys, and now there were 32 this time. The teammates were careful enough, but one of them got badly hurt. They decide to run into the maze as the monsters keep increasing. This dungeon was indeed crazy. The man who was injured had responsibilities, so he only asked Tushar to take care of his daughter. On April 25th, that man breathed his last, and his teammates buried him. Later that day in the evening, the sun was setting, and Tushar prayed to Lord Shiva to grant them mercy so that he could continue to write his diary again tomorrow. They had defeated the 4th wave of Luffys last night, and the 5th one is starting today. Tushar was worried as there were at least 120 of them. Tushar and his teammates had been fighting for their lives, and there are about 40 of them left. Of course, he could take all of them by himself. This guy was on level 10, and he was a gifted player. Tushar was positive that tomorrow they'll be able to leave this place, and he begged the Almighty that there shouldn't be a 6th wave. Zaya lies lifeless in Tushar's hands. Why this hurts so much? Tushar had promised to clear the gate, but what's the point if Zaya is no longer with him? Nothing was more important at this point. Tushar just wanted his Zaya back. Oh man, they had a whole life planned. When Tushar sat there moaning, someone planned his death behind his back. Ram exclaimed that it was time for Tushar to die and simultaneously attacked him with a dagger. He dodges the attack but ends up getting hurt on his hand. He sure was India's #1 rising star. Tushar looks into Ram's eyes and immediately realizes that he is a fiend and that he has deceived them from the very beginning. Ram blames Zaya for being stupid enough to trust him. He criticizes Tushar and his teammates for being useless. Ram ordered Tushar to give him the Tempest, and then he was free to join his dead friends. Tushar wasn't scared of dying, but he was indeed worried about the fiends getting their hands on the Tempest. He decides to run away, but Ram knew that sooner or later Tushar was going to die from the poison anyway. Moreover, there was a 6th wave. Here, he was losing feeling in his arm. No, Tushar couldn't accept death like this, but nothing could change the fact that he was going to die for sure. Tushar takes his notebook and writes down his last wish. He wrote that if someone found this notebook and if that person could connect to their families, tell them that they were sorry. Sorry for not being competent and sorry for disappointing them. That's it. Junho then flips through the pages and finds something more written. Tushar wondered if the rest of his teammates were alive and if they would have been able to clear the gates or not. He knew it was that fiend's fault, those damned fiends. Tushar wished to become one with the eternal soul, and he wanted those sinners to be condemned to hell. He also wrote that if someone finds this notebook, he begs that person to fulfill the vengeance of this dying warrior. Tushar had also figured out how the monsters multiplied, and Seo Junho was grateful that he had come alone here. Junho transfers Tushar's notebook into his inventory, and as for the Tempest, he borrows it for a bit. He also swears to complete Tushar's task and take revenge on those damned fiends. Junho then finally bids farewell to India's young hero. At the player association, Shim Deokgu seems to be quite excited. Jun-Ho's prediction had come true, and without even saying a word, people already knew about this new player. Deok-gu was facing trouble keeping his mouth shut, but he wanted to boost a lot about Seo Jun-Ho. He came in person to visit Jun-Ho, or, as one can say, he actually came all the way along to irritate his friend. Jokes apart, Deok-gu had to deliver a message to Jun-Ho that came from the Indian government. They wanted to thank him for the diary, and their families had been informed. Jun-Ho felt glad about it. Deok-gu was even happier, but he regrets knowing about the Tempest. The very next moment, Jun-Ho shows him the Tempest. Deok-gu is shocked to see the Tempest with Jun-Ho and wonders if he is crazy. He yells at him and asks him to explain about it, as it solely belongs to the Indian government now. Jun-Ho tells him that he is just borrowing it and tells Deok-gu to figure out a reason. He also assures him that he won't use it carelessly, and Jun-Ho plans to keep it because it'll help him attract the fiends. They knew that Ram had died inside the gate, but it was not necessary that he was the one that was after the bow. Maybe the one behind all this had already seen the articles by now, and he might be some crazy dude who values items more than lives. He would eventually know that the Tempest is with Seo Jun-Ho, and he would come after him. Deok-gu knew one guy, the Demon Bow Calciner. He's famous for his bow collection, and he's pretty saucy. Jun-Ho probably knew that this guy would work with other fiends and try to catch him at the next uncleared gate. Deok-gu worries again about Jun-Ho's safety, and Jun-Ho assures him that it won't be the same as 25 years ago. Deok-gu then gets a call from the association, and he tells them to deal with the bugging reporters that were gathered like flies to manure. They wanted to interview Jun-Ho, and this guy has got a plan. Jun-Ho tells Deok-gu that it's time for them to have a press conference because if they were going to fight the fiends, they should at least be the ones that get to choose the battlefield. The reporters were ready with their questions, and they were waiting to pounce on Seo Jun-Ho at the conference. He was the hot topic as he had cleared 2 gates back to back, and the reporters wondered if Korea could create another star player like Kim Woo-jung or Shin Sung-hyun. Everyone knew that Seo Jun-Ho has the talent for attracting attention, and even among countless gemstones, he shines so brightly. Jun-Ho enters the hall and Samditas. These are mere slippers, and he looks like he accidentally walked into the press conference, but he was supposed to enjoy some series at home while munching on his favorite snack. In reality, he had dressed up a lot when he was Spectre, and now Seo Jun-Ho finds it annoying to dress up now. Moreover, Shim Deok-gu is fine with it too. Seo Jun-Ho introduces himself, and the press conference officially begins. They ask him about his experience in the gates and ask him to explain about how he felt. Jun-Ho elucidates the details, and at the end, he decides to take one last question. The question is about the next gate that he plans to go to. Damn, Jun-Ho was waiting for this. He declares that the next gate that he'll be going to is the Eastern Sea Gate, and for some reason, all the people gathered for the conference seem to be astonished by his decision. The reporters try to confirm if Seo Jun-Ho was really referring to that particular Eastern Sea Gate. It was the last uncleared gate in Korea, and yes, he is referring to the very same gate. It's believed that there is a boss monster in there. The people reacted negatively to him, and Jun-Ho knew that made sense as this showed how strong a boss monster is. Boss monsters are on a different level from normal ones. They're immensely powerful, and some of them even take the monsters in as servants and rule over the place as their king. Jun-Ho was confident that if he fought a boss monster, we'd definitely win. The news was intriguing, and 2 people talked about it. The boss thinks that these people were just making a fuss over a rookie, but the Vice Master tells him that it shows how significant the uncleared gates were. He suggests that if his boss was interested, he could contact Seo Jun-Ho. The boss was not interested yet. If something extraordinary happens once, people tend to call it fate. If it happens again, they call it a skill, but the boss thinks that people should wait until the 3rd instance before judging anyone. It was crystal clear now that if player Seo Jun-Ho brings another miracle, he will receive a personal invitation from Shin Sung-hyun, the leader of the top guild in Korea. Here, Shim Deok-gu and Seo Jun-Ho are busy sorting out the commission requests that Jun-Ho received after the press conference. Deok-gu shows him one request that's from a father who is looking for the cure to his daughter's terminal disease. The key to the cure is the core of a cinder fox. Jun-Ho remembers his encounter with the cinder fox and how he almost died back then. Deok-gu shows him the national level gate, which happened only 3 months ago, so it hasn't been declared as an uncleared gate, but it's a monster that has already eaten up 7 teams. Jun-Ho knew that it was going to be harder than before, but Deok-gu assured him that it wouldn't be as hard as he thought. Jun-Ho believed him, so they decided to go with the same request. Moreover, it was actually Deok-gu's friend's commission. It was the Myung-ho group, and the CEO was the second son named Choi Pil-ho. Meanwhile, a girl taps on the door, and it's Ms. Cha Si-yoon. From today onwards, she will be Seo Jun-Ho's secretary and manager. They greet each other, and Deok-gu informs Cha Si-yoon about Jun-Ho's next venture. On the way, Si-yoon asks Jun-Ho if he knew anything about the Myung-ho group, and he tells her that they're #1 in Korea, and she adds to the information by saying that they have a clean background. Their lives were perfect, but then tragedy struck, and Choi Pil-ho's eldest daughter suffered from the 9-yin severance syndrome, and the only way to treat it is to transplant something with high yang energy and keep it balanced. Si-yoon talks about how great Spectre Nim was and that she greatly admires him, to which Jun-ho blushes. They reach Choi's house, and it looks exactly the same. Jun-ho brushes off the thought, and they try to get in. Cha Si-yoon is about to go in and inquire, but Choi Pil-ho himself comes and greets them in person. Choi Pil-ho takes Jun-ho's hand in his hands as if he were pleading with him. He tells Jun-ho that it's his only wish and begs him to save his dear Hee-sun from the wretched disease. Seo Jun-ho and Cha Si-yoon are welcomed inside. Mr. Choi explains how he came to know about someone in France who almost recovered, and he got to know that it was because of the Cinder Fox's core. He gets straight to the point and offers Jun-ho 15 billion won as a commission fee. He also promises to provide him with any items or materials that he'll need for the gate. Cha Si-yoon was sure that Jun-ho would definitely agree as the commission fee is a premium one, but he swiftly declines the offer. Choi Pil-ho feels miserable and makes him an offer of 30 billion won and asks him if this will be enough. Seo Jun-ho didn't want him to raise his offer, as for him, 10 billion was more than enough. Both Mr. Choi and Ms. Cha look at him in confusion, and Choi Pil-ho asks him the reason behind it. Jun-ho explains how Spectre Nim had taken the same amount from the French commissioner, whereas the commissioner was willing to give up all his assets to save his daughter. Jun-ho's reason was the same as his: one shouldn't take advantage of someone who wants to save their family. Seo Jun-ho reaches the player association, and Cha Si-yoon tells him to go ahead as she's going to park the car. Out of curiosity, she asks him if he has heard that story about Spectre Nim from the president. Wasn't it obvious? Of course, it had to be Shim Deok-gu who told him about it. He then asks her if she believes in the story, as Spectre Nim had a reputation for being cold and mechanical. Cha Si-yoon was sure that Spectre Nim was a warm-hearted person, and she definitely believed him. Spectre Nim watched his parents die right before his eyes, so he knew the real value of a family. Someone who couldn't save their own family wouldn't want others to experience the same pain. Well, no one knows the truth besides Spectre himself. Shim Deok-gu asks Jun-ho whether he was satisfied with Ms. Cha Si-yoon, as she only decided to work here because the association was taking care of Spectre. He quickly changes the topic and asks Deok-gu where they are going. It was not easy to fight a Cinder Fox, and so they were going to select a high-tech weapon for Jun-ho. The weapons used nowadays are a combination of technology and magic, and Jun-ho tries out some of the weapons. Seo Jun-ho knew that these were no different than toys in front of true predators. These weapons will be useless against the monsters who could tear apart a player's magic. But the system has always been fair about things such as low-level players faced weaker monsters and vice versa. These weapons were just cost-effective for clearing gates of similar levels. Jun-ho then spots a weapon kept in the corner, and he immediately decides to keep it. The world really has become fun, and he wondered what's with players' growth being hindered by these toys. Next morning, Cha Si-yoon drives Seo Jun-ho to the location, and there seems to be a lot of reporters and a fair amount of players. Everyone's excited about the Cinder Fox's core, and there were 27 participants, including Seo Jun-ho. She gives him a glass of lavender tea, and he loves the taste. Jun-ho tells her that he'd like another cup of tea when he returns, and also informs Si-yoon that she'll have to get up earlier than usual tomorrow because after today's conquest, Jun-ho's going to get a whole ton of commission requests. As soon as Seo Jun-ho walked towards the gate, the reporters flooded him with questions about how he felt and if he was sure he could defeat the Cinder Fox. Meanwhile, the other participants talk about the hype created by the media and how Seo Jun-ho may be just another normal player out there. He was skinny and his weapon was shabby, so people doubted his ability. The interviews have ended, and now everyone's getting ready to get in. The gate is known as the Burning Dunes, and it was almost noon. Damn, it's a desert area inside, and it's crazy hot. It had to be, as the name itself suggests that it's going to be burning, or else the gate would have been known as Icy Land or something fancy. A player screams loudly as he seeks the attention of the other players. He introduces himself as Cha Min-woo, a member of Korea's rank 13 guild, Ching-hee. He tells everyone that there's not much that one can do alone in a gate like this, and with their party being as big as it is, they probably didn't want to put themselves in unnecessary danger, and that's why he had an offer. Cha Min-woo announces that his guild will offer 10 million won to everyone who will follow their directions during the conquest. Some people oppose the proposal, whereas others readily accept it. Cha Min-woo spots Seo Jun-ho and asks him if he wants to join them. He was planning to go alone. The players knew that the rumors were exasperating, and they wondered if he really could stand the Cinder Fox. The players get ready and set their foot into the hot sand. A Cinder Fox is something between a monster and a mythical creature, and it is a boss monster that grows 9 tails over 1,000 years. Once it grows all its tails, it will ascend to the heavens and become the Millennium Fox. With every increase in the number of tails, the number of Firefox soldiers that it could command also increases. Seo Junho didn't know the number of tails the Cinder Fox in this gate has, but for now he has to scout out a good spot. Soon the Firefoxes rush towards the players, and Cha Min-woo tells his followers that they shouldn't panic. Currently, there are about 30 of them. It was now time for them to attack the soldiers. The players use different types of high-tech weapons, and the Firefoxes are doomed to be destroyed. Cha Min-woo was passionate, and he warns the monsters to watch carefully. This was different from the age of weak weapons and sloppy traps. Thus is the power of technology on the second floor. One of them informs the leader that they have already dealt with more than half of the Firefoxes and that they'll be soon encountering the boss monster. The other players were nervous, but they felt safe because they joined the Chinghe Guild. Surprisingly, the area starts getting dark. Oh my god, it's because of the Cinder Fox. The boss monster finally appeared, and it looked dangerously dark and seemed to be burning with powers. The system notifies that the boss for Burning Dunes has appeared. The players count its tails, and damn, it has 9 tails. The leader reminds everyone to get it together and that they should stay in the formation and focus on the attack. No matter the monster, stabbing its heart and head will kill it. In addition, Cha Min-woo has prepared the trap, and if the Cinder Fox is caught, it won't be able to escape. Cha Min-woo was confident about killing the Cinder Fox and that he aimed to surpass Spectre. The Burning Dunes had turned into a battlefield and the injured players were all over the place. The Cinder Fox had destroyed each one of them. None of their weapons, traps, or strategies worked. Cha Min-woo reflects on all what had just happened. He wondered how they were supposed to hunt down this vicious monster. For him, at this very moment, it was possible. The Cinder Fox was just at short distance from Cha Min-woo, and he could feel death taking over, and he wondered if this is how he was going to die. In the following moment, Seo Junho stands right in front of Cha Min-woo as a shield. He tells Junho to get out of the way and he'll be fine. Junho unsheathes his sword and he's ready to finish off the Cinder Fox. Min-woo thought that this was the end, but no, this wasn't the end. Junho knew that they were doomed from the start, but he couldn't accept the end like this. He wanted to change each and everything and fight till he defeated the monster. Seo Junho tells Cha Min-woo to take all the survivors and move out of here. It was time to take care of this deadly guy. The beast steps forward and the players get panicked. They request their leader to come along with them, and though Cha Min-woo hesitates, but he eventually leaves with them. Now that the stragglers are gone, Junho is ready to have some real fun with the Cinder Fox. The monster growls in anger and the sand explodes. The whole area seemed to be on fire. Junho activated his frost skill and prepared a thick sheet so that he could survive. He knew that the monster won't let him get close. And finally the time came when the Cinder Fox decided to use the giant flame blast. This was its strongest skill and Junho won't be able to survive the hit. The very next moment, the monster attacked him and boom. The place where Seo Junho stood was now destroyed. The monster advances towards the place to strike his prey, but it turns out that Junho was hiding under those flames. This was trap he had set for the monster. He jumps upon the monster and he's ready to strike his sword and attack the boss monster. The Cinder Fox's strength increases with its number of tails, and Junho wonders what if the number of tails decreases. Hang on, he's doing a demonstration of it. Junho literally cuts off a few tails of the Cinder Fox, and now he knew what to do. It was obvious that its strength will also decrease. So that is it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. So if you like the video, then hit that like button and leave a comment for the next part. Most important, subscribe and press the bell icon for notification. I will meet you in the new video. Till then, bye.